I want to just to start off with you to get to know a little bit more about your early life.
Yeah.
Um, your musical experiences. I know that you moved around. You were born in Jamaica and then you moved to England and then to Connecticut. After that, a lot of moving around in that. What was your musical upbringing like during those times? Did it change place to place?
Um, well, I mean, the first 7 years of my life was in Jamaica, where I was born, and I mean that was pretty normal. I always had a lot of music around me though, growing up, because most Jamaicans back in those days, well, still, Jamaica was a British colony, so we had all kinds of music. We had obviously the religious music, Church of England. We had lots of hymns, and then obviously all the classical music of England, country and western music, because Jamaica wasn't far from America. It's not far from Miami, and then obviously the authentic reggae. Well, later on reggae, but the ska music, and then we had all the R&B music. So growing up in Jamaica, I think it was like a lot of international influence music wise. And then we moved to England when I was 7 years old, and I did all my schooling there until I went to Hartford, Connecticut. But I mean, they were far apart, the moving around, and so I was able to adjust to each country that I lived in. Yeah.
And why did you move to America?
Well, that was because my mother, my mother was very ambitious, very uh, wanted the best opportunities for me. And she thought, well, maybe go to school in America, that it would be advantageous. So that's why I studied there. I did my sophomore high school schooling there well, I lived in Hartford with my aunt, but the school was actually in Manchester. Yeah.
And at this time, how much a part of your life was music? Did that's what you're going to do? That's what you want to, make your career out of?
No, because uh, I knew it was something that I enjoyed, because while I was in school in America, I joined the choir, the school choir. So singing was very much a fun thing. It always resonated with me from a very early age. And I loved it. I loved the feeling that I got when I sang. And I also loved the feeling, the effect that it had on anyone who was listening. And but I didn't plan that. No, I mean, I fell into it. Um, some might say by accident, but then again, nothing is a coincidence, I guess. And but it wasn't planned, because most Jamaicans can sing. It's not a big deal. It's not a proper job. Um, so I didn't think it was anything special when I got into singing.
Did anyone around you, in America, in high school, anyone say to you, you can really sing, like you have a voice, or did no one tell you that?
No, because personally, I think everyone in America can sing anyway. It's nothing special. No one ever said that. No, that's a good point. No one ever said that. Now that I think about it, no, no one told me that. It was just kind of like a normal thing, really.
So then, how did you kind of fall into doing it professionally?
Well, this was because when I returned to England, after studying in America for a year, I joined a band, and the guys were called Eruption. And we just used to play together for fun. We did local shows, at colleges and stuff like that, at pubs and all that kind of thing. And then we heard about a talent competition, which we thought, okay, our local radio station was looking for a band to represent the radio station. So I thought, okay, well, let's apply, let's see what would happen. and we ended up representing a radio station called Capital Radio in London, and then we went on to compete against the other independent radio stations up and down the UK, and we were lucky enough to win. And when we won a recording contract with RCA Records, and then that was when we discovered that RCA wanted us to become full time. I was just finishing school. The guys in the band who were older than me, um, they had jobs, and the record company was saying you had to give up your jobs. We're saying, like, what? He said, oh, yes, you're full time professionals now. And so I guess that's when it got serious.
And for you at this time, were you influenced? Like, what were some of the artists that you were listening to at this time that your favorites that maybe impacted you vocally?
Well, they would be all the, bands that were around and successful in the 70s, because at this time, it was, we won the talent competition. Actually, it was literally last month, 50 years ago, we won that talent competition. So it was July 1975. And in the 70s, there were bands like, Earth, Wind and Fire, the Commodores, um, Chaka Khan. Um, so we listened to all those, Aretha Franklin. But I also listened to the old time records, that my mother had, like Sam Cooke, Sam and Dave, Brooke Benton, you know. So yeah, it was a lot of Mahalia Jackson, because my mother really loved her voice. So we had those records at home. So I listened to Mahalia, bit of Bing Crosby, the Beatles. So it's actually quite a big mixture of various different styles and influences.
So then, how did you guys get from that talent competition to being signed and with Frank Farian?
Oh, well, typical story of most bands when you're struggling in the early days. I mean, having won the contract with RCA, we had one record out. I mean, it was quite a good song, but it didn't quite make the charts. And like I said, the guys had given up their jobs. I mean, it wasn't so bad for me. I was still living at home, so I could still eat. But the guys, were really having money problems. And RCA um, didn't do as much for us as they did for other artists. Um, and so we nagged our manager, please, please, we need to earn some money, we need to get some gigs. And he managed to, well, I don't think he actually managed to get us any gigs, but somehow we managed to get a 2 week discotheque tour in Germany in 1976. And so we went to Germany with all our equipment in the back of the bus. And we completed the 2 week discotheque tour, but our truck broke down, so we couldn't drive back to England. And so we asked another musician who was staying in the same bed and breakfast where we were staying, you know, bed and breakfast where it was like a little hotel where they gave you breakfast. And um, so this musician was a guy, a very famous Austrian guy called Kurt Hauenstein. And Kurt told us about a studio which was down the road in a place called Offenbach, which was just outside of Frankfurt. And so he said, yeah, go down there and see if you could get some work. And this studio was a studio that Frank Farian, Boney M's producer, used. At that time, Boney M had their first release, which was a song called Baby Do You Wanna Bump? And this record took off internationally, well, it took off in Europe, maybe not America or anywhere else, but definitely in Holland and Germany. And Frank wanted them to do an international tour. And so we auditioned and we got the job to become Boney M's support group and their backing band for their first European tours. So that's how we got to Germany.
And what was it like for them backing Boney M at this time? How long were you on the tour? Did it continue into when they started having more hits like Daddy Cool and such coming out? Was
Yeah, definitely, because that song was in the set of when of the set list of the songs for the tour. We toured with them for maybe about I would say oh, about a year and a half or something, because it wasn't until I Can't Stand the Rain, Eruption's I Can't Stand the Rain, that we stopped touring with them because, people were saying, oh, Frank, you've got two bands that you're producing, two groups, and don't you think it's right that Eruption goes and promote their own song now instead of, remaining um, Boney M's backing band? And so that was when we then started doing our own shows, our own tours, and promoting I Can't Stand the Rain.
and for you, what was it like hearing those songs, having your songs? Because like One Way Ticket, I Can't Stand the Rain, these were already songs. I mean, they're covers that you've done, but completely different arrangements. That I mean, they're the same song, but they're also a different song completely. What was it like for you doing those songs? Did you know them before? Like I Can't Stand the Rain, did you know that song before?
Um, yeah, vaguely, because it was done by Anne Peebles, but I think that was in the 60s, but she did a much more bluesy version, and it was a slower tempo. Yeah, it was much more bluesy. So when it was suggested to us that why don't we do a cover version, we thought, well, because I'm a firm believer if you're doing a cover version, there needs to be something different about it. Otherwise, just leave it alone. Just stick to the original version. But so we thought, well, if we're going to do it, let's make it different. And obviously, at that time, it was the era of disco music, and so the tempo was upbeat, and um, we actually took the lyrics quite literally, I can't stand the rain. So I thought, oh, okay, how can we make this different? So we literally thought, okay, let's put some thunder at the front of the song. And so that's what we did. And unlike One Way Ticket, I Can't Stand the Rain doesn't have that refrain chorus repeating over and over. Um, I Can't Stand the Rain was more of a hook. The very line, I can't stand the rain, was what people sing along to, even today when I do concerts. Um, but from a production point of view, I think Frank was able to produce the track in a way where it's actually quite powerful, but quite transparent. It's not overly produced. And so I think that was the magic of that song, strong bass line, the rhythm and the hook. So yeah, which is, obviously slightly different from One Way Ticket.
And for you, what was it like in the studio? Because I know with Boney M that it was essentially just I believe Liz that did most of the vocals on them. Um, I know obviously it was you doing the Eruption vocals, but were the other members of the band in the studio, or was it Frank and just you?
Oh no, it was usually, I mean, unless, if it was a song where it was a ballad. But then I think most tracks, everybody was singing. All the guys sang backing vocals, including the drummer, although lots of people would like to say, oh, yeah, the musicians and the drummer. But we were lucky that our drummer also sang. So in Eruption, we were all at the studio all at the same time. Basically, if I was singing, everybody just sat and had a coffee or, rehearsed their parts for the next track, to prepare for the next, track on the album. Um, and yeah, only when I did my solo albums, then it would just be me, Frank, sound engineer, and sometimes like an assistant producer. But yeah, we were very much a band in it together. And actually, don't forget, with Boney M, Liz sang lead and also Marcia. and Frank. It was the three of them that sang on the Boney M recording. I always have to mention that because sometimes people forget my friend Marcia, who also sang, But of course, Liz had the unique voice as lead singer, which, just gave Boney M their identity. But, all three of them sang.
Yes, and Marcia did a great leads on Belfast and was it We Kill
Me,
the
got
World?
me, yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, I mean, great lead vocals on that. Very
Yes.
talented singer.
Oh, yeah.
And what was your relationship like with Boney M? Was there any type of competition, or was it all, were you friends?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say we were friends because we were, a lot of us, well, Marcia, Liz, and myself, were all, all three of us are from Jamaica. So there was that connection. And also, um, we enjoyed working with each other. I guess the main difference in terms of were we competing with each other, no, because Eruption, we came together um, organically, really. We played together because we just liked playing with each other in making the same music. We all felt passionate about the same types of songs, and we grew together because I had no musical education or any voice training or anything like that before I met the guys. So it was um, I learned through passion. I learned the singing by just doing it and by touring and by just doing one gig after the other. Um, no, so I mean, there was no competition because we knew, Eruption knew that Boney M was Frank's baby. He nurtured them. He was a really hard-working guy when it came to hours in the studio, particularly with Boney M songs. He was a perfectionist. And so they were always his priority. And we knew that. So, once he just said, okay, Frank and Boney M. And we were grateful for the opportunity um, that we got by working with Boney M because the types of tours that we did, being their backing band and their support act throughout Europe, up until then, we hadn't experienced that. So, from our perspective, we were so glad for the opportunity to meet Frank, and we gained our success and our audience through Frank and through Boney M. So, yeah, from my perspective, there wasn't any competition.
And were you ever nervous when you were in those early days, with Boney M, being on stage? Because I would assume that it would be a larger audience than what you had played for before. And it seems like you were kind of just learning by doing as you're going along. Was that a big shock for you at all to suddenly have all these people out there?
What do you mean? On stage or in the audience?
In
Or,
the audience, a much
oh,
bigger
much
audience.
bigger. Yeah, wider. We were doing like, concert halls and, large venues. Yeah. Yeah, so that was exciting. And even today, I'm always nervous before I do a performance. It's what gives me the energy really, because I say to myself, I mean, occasionally you get someone who's seen you before, but most audiences are totally new. And it's almost like you're having to prove yourself each time. So I never become complacent and think, oh, yeah, they're here to see me. I won't put any effort in. No. For me, it's like introducing myself to the people every time. Um, and yes, when it's a larger audience or often before the Ukraine war that we have right now, we often used to go to Russia a lot. In fact, the most of Eastern Europe, when it was the USSR, um, was a regular visit to audience for us. We'd go there often. And in Russia, like Moscow, we've done stadiums, 30, 40,000 people. And you do get a sense that you have to put more effort into entertaining such large numbers because you feel their energy of expectation. And so when you're on stage, you have a feeling that you really have to push out more energy to touch and to connect with the audience. So yeah, so it's you know, yeah, so the nervousness is still there. And but it doesn't make any difference to me whether it's, thousands of people or if it's just 10 people. Um, my intention is always to leave a positive impact on anyone who hears the music.
And how do you feel then from the 70s to now? How do you feel that you've changed in terms of your performance? Do you feel that you do different types of material? Do you have a different interpretation of the songs? Um, are the costumes different? I mean, what has changed over, I guess, these 50 years?
Hang on, let me get my list out. I often say to people, I feel privileged um, to kind of like, I had like one foot on pre-internet and the other foot on 2025, and the changes. I mean, the list is endless, especially for artists, and the whole industry has changed. um, and in some ways it's easier, and in other ways it's harder. But lots of things have changed. You mentioned the costumes. Those days, as you might see from the old Eruption videos, we were allowed to be, outrageous, and anything. I mean, the main point was, in those days, the main point was not to look like somebody in the audience. Whereas now, you know, many artists will just go on stage with, t-shirt and jeans. In the 70s, that was no, you don't. You had to be spectacular. Um, in terms of like the songs that I do then and now, well, I tend to still promote my own songs that I recorded then, and they were always a little bit, um, you know, always soulful and good melodies, because that's what attracted me to a song. And over the years, I've always maintained that. I love a song, even if it's a cappella. If the song can't stand up on its own with, in terms of the melody and the chorus and something that the audience can hook onto, then I usually don't choose those songs or to sing them or to record them. So that's been the same throughout. Um, and it's usually songs which are kind of like positive and uplifting, and because I think those ingredients stand the test of time, really. So even though 50 years have gone by, um, the same songs I sang in the 70s, the songs that I recorded, somehow still have the same impact over the decades. And the one that really amazes me is One Way Ticket. But I've done other stuff as well. But, you know, those two songs, I Can't Stand Away, One Way Ticket, are the ones that um, have a special place in people's hearts, I think.
And One Way Ticket and I Can't Stand the Rain were very successful. I Can't Stand the Rain crossed over, and it was quite popular in North America. For you, what was that like when all of a sudden you have an international hit? I mean, it's not just contained to continental Europe anymore, it's all over.
Well, I mean, we were shocked. I never forget the first time when I heard I Can't Stand the Rain. We were on tour in Italy, I think, with Boney M. We were all on this big bus, you know, and I remember we were dancing actually to Bob Marley's Exodus. So in the aisles on the bus, all the music was coming through the speaker, and then we'd stop playing that and we'd have the radio on, and then we're just sitting there, and then I Can't Stand the Rain came on, and I'm like, you say that we had other musicians to add to our rhythm section. Like a brass section, we had a second keyboard, etc. And so the other guys were saying, "Hey guys, Eruption, that's your song." We're like saying, Oh yeah, because it took so long for I Can't Stand the Rain to get into the charts, you know? I mean, it wasn't an overnight night success. It literally took 3 or 4 months. And so, when we released it, we were excited because, we didn't understand the business at the time. We thought, it's released, so it's going to be in the charts. No, it took months um, to get in there. So by the time we started hearing it on the radio, we thought, oh, okay, yeah, all right. We didn't realize because we were new to the business. It's not like now where you have books and courses about music business. We were totally new and green to the whole industry, and I didn't realize the significance of what it meant that you're getting airplay and you're all the way in Italy and it's on the radio. It didn't dawn on me exactly, the impact of what was happening. We were very
And
naive, very naive. Yeah.
and did you go to America to promote it at all?
Well, no. Even though it was got to number 18 in the Billboard charts, and the record company didn't organize that. Can you imagine if we went there and promoted it and did interviews and did some shows? We don't know where it would have gone, but it got to number 18 all by itself. Yeah, there you go. The strength of the song.
Yeah, because I mean, in those days in America, you had to really promote a song
Yeah.
very hard just within America.
Yes.
And so for it to make it to 18 and not being an American artist from it coming from Europe, making it to 18,
Yeah.
I mean, who
That was
knows? Yeah.
I know. But the interesting thing as well with Frank Farian, the producer, he was very much into producing for the German market, you know, which would people would be well at that time. Obviously, later on he moved to America. He lived in Miami, but before he passed away. But for him, I remember at the time when he said, "Well, if a German person couldn't sing along, considering that the songs were all in English." For him, if they couldn't sing along, then it wasn't going to be a hit. He wouldn't bother with the song. It was so he produced primarily for Germany and Europe, you know. Um, Obviously later on when he had Milli Vanilli, that was a whole different talk show, that one. But then he was more interested in the response, and I think he started to appreciate North America and America with in terms of releasing his productions. But yeah, who knows where I could stand Can't Stand the Rain would have been if it was promoted properly. Yeah.
Because it went higher than any Boney M song on the charts. Boney M
I don't know,
in
really?
America.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
their
I
highest
didn't
one
know
was,
that. Wow.
yeah, it was Rivers of Babylon, I believe, went to number 30 on the charts, and that's as high as they got.
Gosh, every day's a school day. I did not know that. Thank
Yeah,
you. New info today. Wow.
yeah. So
Thank you
I
for that.
mean, yeah. So Eruption, did better in
Yay!
America.
Blow my own trumpet. Sorry about that. Yeah. Oh, I didn't know
So
that. Honestly, I did not know that we got higher than that's good. Yeah, that's good. I
yeah,
also had another track that got to number 40 again. Wasn't promoted. They didn't say "Come Over, Precious." That was a song called "I'll Be Your Friend," which was a Billboard Top 40 without any promotion. A lot of politics with the record company between who was yeah. Um, I mean, people need to know that it takes a lot to get a record in the charts. People would not understand. They might think, oh, but your first one got in the charts. Why didn't the next one and the next one? There are so many moving parts to make a song a hit. You would not understand how difficult it is. And it often has nothing to do with how good the song is or not. Because a song can be rubbish and still get in there because the machinery of the promotion of the record company just push it up there. And other songs, might be a great song. People actually love it if they heard it, but it doesn't get any airplay. No one bothers to promote it, and it just gets lost. But that's just how the music business is. You either, if you can't take the heat, come out of the kitchen, really. So I'm still in the kitchen 50 years later. So yeah, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the live audiences. That's the main thing these days. To be able to, for people to meet you in person in a concert. So um, that's always been my passion. So yeah, I enjoy that as well as the studio recordings. Also like to do shows.
And I want to talk about your live shows, but first, I wanted to ask you about your debut single, "Hold On, I'm Coming." Why was that on the Boney M record? Um, what kind of happened there?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think Frank Farian thought that it would be, well, hmm, I think it's a mixture of things. Number one, I think he thought it would be good to be a platform to launch my singing career. But secondly, now that I think about it, I think it was probably because he'd offered me to join Boney M after I left Eruption. Um, but I didn't take up the offer because I just felt that I didn't want to leave one group to join another group. I felt like I'd give it a go as a solo artist. And so I had said no because I couldn't figure out, well, which of the ladies were going to leave the group? Who was I going to replace? Like I said earlier, they were all my friends, Bobby, Marcia, Macy, Liz. And I'm thinking, well, hang on a second, are we going to have like four women in the group? So I said no. And so because Frank obviously was the producer for Eruption, for my solo album, for Boney M, um, he took an executive decision to put me on that Oceans of Fantasy album. And there's also another track called Let It All Be Music, which was going to be my second solo track on the album. And then I recorded all four verses. And then Frank decided that he was going to share that song between myself, Marcia, Liz, and himself. Yeah, so it was Frank's decision to put me on that album.
So I guess then the song "Let It All Be Music" would kind of be what it might have been like if you did join Boney M, having the all of you together on one song.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Put me in the group by the back door, through the back door.
Yeah, but
But no, listen, I'm not complaining. I was not kicking and screaming. I think it was overall a good idea as a launch pad. But the only thing is that, there is sometimes confusion when people think that I'm a member of Boney M. I've never been a member of Boney M. And there's also the confusion. Often people think a one-way ticket is a Boney M song. It's not, it's an Eruption song.
and was is that confusion just kind of grown over time, or did people get confused when it was happening in
No,
like
it wasn't. It
1999?
wasn't at the time. The confusions happened because there are so many tribute Boney M bands, and many are almost going around pretending to be the real Boney M singers. And the problem is because so many years has gone by, often the promoters and the agents who book the tribute bands don't explain to the audience that no, these are not the real Boney M members, especially as Bobby died some years ago, you know. Um, and so, because of the tribute bands, who often, because of the popularity of One Way Ticket, they include it in the set list, in the repertoire of the tribute bands. And so then the audience think, oh, that's a Boney M song. But no, so yeah, so the confusion's reinforced by the tribute bands. Yeah.
And for you then, when you did your first solo album, I was noticing that you were had written on a lot of those tracks that are on there.
Yeah.
What was that like then for you now to be doing originals instead of songs that were covers of other people's?
Well, as a band, Eruption, we always wrote our own material. If but it's a case of ultimately what is put on the album, but we were always a songwriting band, or at least on the singles, on the B side, we always made it a policy that we would have our original songs on our recordings, even if the A side was cover. On the other side would be an original song, and so that was a habit that was normal to me because as a band member of Eruption, and so when I went solo, I continued that. But then there's a lot of politics, because oftentimes in the music business, um, record companies sometimes don't allow original material onto the artist's album if they don't own the publishing. So these are the political things that happens, often when sometimes it might say, "Oh, why don't you write more material?" And they don't know what the reason why the original material is not on the albums or on the singing. There's a lot of politics involved. Yeah, but in answer to your question, yes, I did write a lot of a lot of yeah, reasonable amount of the songs on my albums, um, because what happens when you're a singer is that um, melodies, because you sing so many melodies, and because you interpret songs so often that it's quite easy to write a song and create melody and to come up with lyrics, because when you improvise and ad lib, you have to make up words come into your head based on the story of the song, and you kind of come out with lines that summarizes the first verse or summarizes the complete story. And so it's not difficult to write songs for me, actually. Yeah, it's almost natural once you singing is your habit. Yeah.
Do you continue to write at all?
I do. I am working on new material, and it's just finding the time to fit it in. Yeah, but yeah, that's my intention for the new year.
And what kind of style are you writing in? What genre?
It's the same stuff. It's a, if it's not broken, no need to fix it. So it's gonna be the same pop slash R&B soul, and the same formula, good melodies with catchy choruses. I mean, um, I've been doing it too long to change it now, so I'm just going to stick to the recipe. Why change it? It tastes so good. Let's leave it as it is. Yeah.
But it really is amazing, and I think your solo career, your first album is so good. The songs on it, and for you, was this? Do you feel at this time it's now into the 80s, and Boney M's popularity is kind of waning a little bit into the 80s. They're not the same peak that they were at. Did you feel that Frank's attention was moving less, like less on Boney M and more on you at this time, or was it about the same for you?
It's about the same. I mean, by then he probably started doing, other projects as well. But I mean, he's a bit like me in that there's no point releasing songs if you're not happy with them. So that could have been why things quietened down a little bit for them. But I mean, um, I don't think he took much time off for Boney M because he was always working on something for them. Um, and so he kind of squeezed me in to his schedule actually to do that first album. Just fitted me in. Oh, I got a free moment. I mean, there would often actually be times when I would be booked for the studio, and then in the middle of my recording, he would suddenly start mixing a Boney M track, So they were always his priority, trust me on that. So if you think it went quiet for them, behind the scenes, there was lots going on. But no, I am particularly proud of that first album, and the second one actually. Yeah, I mean, I was able to take part in the songwriting, and I was I was given a lot of good songs that I could select from, and so that was good. And unfortunately, this though some of the album tracks are not so well known. You know, there was like "Stop Running," "Stay by My Side," "The Night the Music Died." Um, some really good tracks, but yeah, yeah, people like what they like, don't they? They like what they like, and so that's why those two tracks are favorite. Nobody talks about so much later when I got signed to Jive Records when I moved back to London. Um, you know, the soundtrack from the Michael Douglas movie, The Jewel of the Nile. You know, no one talks about that. Oh, they just talk about One Way Ticket. But I've had the opportunity to do lots of other stuff. I was produced by Monty Moore, who used to be in Prince's band. He produced an album for me on Jive Records. So yeah, it's a lot of stuff, but it's okay. It's all good.
Well, I was gonna ask you next about Jewel of the Nile. That's my favorite of all of your solo work that you've done. I love that one, and it's so underrated. Um,
Yeah, it's not, you can't dance to it. You know, it's not a up tempo disco beat, you know, but it's a wonderful song. It was written by Graham Lyle and the guys that wrote Tina Turner's What's Love Got to Do with It. Terry Britton and Graham Lyle, they wrote that song for me. And it's a lovely song, but it's not as commercial and poppy like One Way Ticket, I guess. But I thank you because that's one of my favorite songs too.
well, I think it's very cinematic. It's perfect for a movie. It fits right in with that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
Great production as well. Yeah, love the
so
sax solo.
so when did you part ways with Frank?
That was just before I got signed to Jive and moved to London. So that was probably 1985, possibly, or 1984. Yeah, round about there, 84, 85. Yeah.
And can you talk a little bit about, your life at that time? What was it feeling like, going from, so you've worked with Frank, this producer that you've been very successful with, had lots of hits, very successful career, and now you're not only switching labels and producers, but you're also moving to, what was this time in your life kind of like? A lot of changes.
Yeah, it was a lot of changes. Um, well, I mean, it had to be done basically because there was supposed to be another album and there's supposed to be six singles, and they didn't happen. And so they were gonna happen, and so my contract expired, and I got offered by Jive Records, Somber, and so I took the offer. It was just simple as that. And what was it like? I was excited because Jive, um, they had a lot of them. I think they just signed Whitney Houston at that time as well. They had, Millie Jackson, a flock of seagulls. They were an Australian group. They had um, Houdini. They had a lot of people, and oh, Billy Ocean, Ruby Turner. There was lots of these. Some of these artists are known in the UK, but so I was very excited, and they were very keen to break me into the American market. Um, so yeah, so it was like a new beginning. It was a new chapter in my life.
And I was reading that you were the first uh, female Black UK-based singer to tour in the Soviet Republic uh, in was 88 it was.
Yeah, yes.
What was that like, doing it? Were those shows by yourself? Was it with other people?
No, it was just me, myself, and I, and my band. Um, and that came about because of the history with the records that Frank produced. Because our record company was in West Berlin, And just down the road was Checkpoint Charlie with all the soldiers and the security in order to get from West Berlin into East Berlin, because we often used to do concerts in East Berlin. But somehow the music, rippled through the wall, over the Berlin Wall, into East Germany. And obviously, East Germany was part of the USSR. And so East Germany went into all the other 15 republics that there were at that time, and obviously to headquarters in Moscow. And so this tour, I think maybe, I don't know, maybe Paul McCartney or somebody else had done concert there, but it was only in Moscow. I did um, 6 of the 15 republics I toured in. Each week, we're there for a week in each venue, in each stadium, sports hall, all different types of venues. And what was that like? Well, for a start, I had to send all the lyrics over of the songs to the Ministry of Culture for them to check what I was singing about. So that just tells you a little taste there, because before they agreed, they had to be sure what I was singing about. And so that was one of the things. And then we each each of us, like the band had an interpreter, the crew had an interpreter, I had an interpreter, and we couldn't go anywhere obviously because we didn't speak Russian. We couldn't go anywhere without the interpreters. And obviously, in order for them to be interpreters and to accompany this Western artist, they had to be make sure that they were, you know, really loyal to the government and what have you. And also during the shows, like the first 10 rows would be either soldiers in the audience, or members of the Communist Party. And then the ordinary folks were way at the back and they weren't allowed to stand up. I didn't know this. I'd be saying, yeah, get up, let's go. And I'm saying, why aren't they responding? And then I saw one brave person or a couple of brave people stand up and they were truncheon down back into their seat. And I thought, uh-oh, I won't be telling them to stand up anymore. But the response was so good. And they were quite reserved because they were probably afraid to get too expressive. Um, but it was a wonderful audience. And I really realized that even that music is international. Somehow we communicated the joy, the rhythm. It still connected with them, and so it's almost like you didn't really need to be able to speak. You know, I didn't really need to speak fluent Russian apart from Dobry Verchi, Pachausta, Dos Vidania. You know, hello, good evening, thank you, goodbye. But the music communicated so amazingly well, and the wonderful people, you know. We're all human beings. This is what music tells you. Ultimately, we're all just ordinary folks trying to get through life. So it was a wonderful experience.
And that was also very close to when the Berlin Wall was going to fall. I mean, I can imagine that there would be a lot of tension around that time. Um, did you ever feel nervous about your own safety or that something might happen if you were to say something or to do something?
But while we were in Russia or in the Soviet Union, where do you mean?
In the Soviet Union during that time
Well,
there?
well, I mean, I'm not political, right? So there wouldn't be any. I just found the whole experience interesting because at the time, um, the people had so little. We almost felt bad that we were coming from somewhere where our lives would seem more freer, and they were struggling for basic things. But we knew we had to be careful what questions we asked them, and you had a sense that they couldn't really. speak freely, our interpreters. Those were the only people we were in contact with. Um, and we also, as the weeks went on, because we did 55 shows there in 6 weeks, 55 shows in 7 weeks, yeah, yeah. Over the time, we got friendlier with our interpreters. And I remember one of them told us that her husband knew somebody who had put the microphones into the ventilation system, or what looked like a ventilation system, in our hotel in Moscow. So we knew that the phone lines were tapped, and we knew that you know, if you were talking in your room, there was a microphone. And we also, in those days, they had a lady who sat on every floor of the hotel at a desk at the end of the corridor, where she could see who was coming in and out, going in and out of the room. So we, we had a sense of surveillance. We knew that we were being watched, but we were just there to play the music. There wasn't anything that they needed to be worried about. We were just there to try and uplift the people and give them a good time. Yeah, so we're innocent. We're innocent. It didn't need to worry about us.
Uh, and then for you, you had a hit with I Feel Love
Oh
with
gosh,
Gaga,
yes.
the early 90s. Um, what was that like for you, being in the 90s music scene now, which is very different from the 70s?
No, techno. I was doing a techno song. It was quite interesting because that was an well, I mean, it's a Donna Summer song. I think Donna Summer, she used to live in Munich when we lived near Frankfurt, so I love her music. And so I love the song anyway. Um, but I have to say, I mean, I had to figure out how to perform it because in London at the time, in England, we had this music show called Top of the Pops, which was like every week the hit parade, the songs that entered the charts would be, if you entered at a certain number, you'd appear on Top of the Pops. And so I remember doing Top of the Pops, and I was thinking in my head, I was thinking, oh my gosh, this techno beat, how am I going to dance to this? Because it's so fast. And I thought, oh, okay, right, just do it half time. So I just went like that instead of that move, So, but yeah, I love the song. Yeah, but I had to think hard about how to perform it because I was just so out of breath if I went move to the beat. So I just grooved it, just grooved to the beat instead of move to the beat. Yeah, but yeah, that was a good song. Number 18, was it? Number 19 in the charts? 18 in the UK charts. Yeah, that was a good song, fun song. And it's also just to let people know that I'm still around, hey, I'm still here. Yeah, so that's what that was about.
And for you, at that time, uh, I know that this was around the whole Milli Vanilli thing with Frank that happened and such. Did did you have I know Frank has passed away earlier this year, or was it last year?
It was last year, I
Last
think.
year.
Yeah, last year. Yeah.
Yes. Um did you ever, reconnect with Frank, ever talk to him um at all ever since you left Germany in the 80s?
I think I met him when Boney M had their movie debut in the theatre in Theatreland. No, it was a musical, wasn't it? And there was opening night. So I saw him then, whatever year that was, when Daddy Cool, the movie, not the movie, the musical came out. And I recently, well, not recently, but was it during COVID? Yeah, during the pandemic, there was somebody who wanted to do a remix of One Way Ticket, and they wanted me to ask Frank if he was okay with it. And so we communicated by email. I'm in touch with one of his daughters, but we weren't like buddies. We weren't close friends as such, you know. I think we had a respectful relationship, professional relationship, and only really communicated when we needed to. Um, but yeah, but that's kind of normal, really, because you know it was a business relationship, so we didn't like hang out, you know, or anything like that. Or me go to Miami to see him or him come to London. No, it wasn't. It, you know, our contract had ended. Yeah.
So very much a working relationship as opposed
Oh,
to Boney M, where
yeah.
you were friends. You're friends with
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
No, Frank and I, we had a working relationship because obviously it was business. I think if I was a nurse, it would never have met, you know. So we only met because because of music. And then we kind of lost contact when we weren't working together anymore contractually.
And do you keep in touch with any of the members of Boney M or
Yeah.
Eruption?
Eruption, not so much because obviously they weren't too happy that I left the band. But yeah, Boney M, yeah, I mean, I'm in touch with Marcia, Liz, and Maisie. Yeah.
And for you, you know, as you mentioned, 50 years really of the career now. What kind of keeps you inspired to still perform, to still tour, to go out there, you know, after thousands of shows? I mean, there's been, do you ever get sick of it at all, or what keeps you going?
No, no. You know, I think because in the first place, I did it because I love to do it, and that's not changed. That hasn't changed over the 50 years. Uh, I do it because of the feeling I get when I'm on stage performing, the feeling I get from the songs, and I do it because of the feeling that I get from the audience when they respond to the songs. Um, Particularly when I go to certain parts of America where there is um, East European communities, and they I do the show, and then I get to meet them, and they tell me about what they went through when the songs were originally released. How many of them in Russia, they would get the illegal vinyl through, and they would well, not just Eruption song, but from any artist from the West, and they would exchange vinyls in the forest, and or they would tell me stories about how they met their wives, husbands, you know, how they have the nostalgic memories of their youth when they hear the songs. And when you meet people who say that to you just think, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that. I thought it was just a song. I didn't know that it was impacting people's lives like that, you know? And that is a type of feeling that make you want to continue um, touching people like that and reconnecting and and just making people so joyful. Who would stop doing that? Come on now. Why would I stop? I love it. No, seriously, I really enjoy what I do. It started as a hobby and it turned into a business. I had no idea at the beginning of this was like a business. Oh, the music industry? Oh, is it? Is that what it is? I thought I was just singing and having a good time. And I'll try and do it as long as I can, God willing.
And for you, what has it meant to you to be able to do this? And to I guess to still be able to do it because there's been lots of performers that, you know, had some success in the 70s and then they're not able to perform anymore. Not because they don't want to, but because, you know, there's just no one backing them, no one to promote them or anything like that. What does it mean to you that you are still able to? People still come to see you, and they want to hear you still.
Listen, I can't believe it. Honestly, when we won that talent competition in 1975, I had no idea I would be doing this in 2025. So, it means a lot to me. And And it is really, sorry, what was your question? What did you ask me?
Well, it's what does it mean to you to be able to continue to do this? That
Right.
people still want to come out and they want to see you and they still are connected to you.
Yeah, it is. I'm so grateful. I almost have to pinch myself sometimes. And, from the fact that they love the music still. And then, like, before I came here, I'm in, where am I? In Toronto right now. We had a show in Germany in a place called in Bremen, wir waren in Bremen. And there's sometimes like three generations who come to see my show. There are the people who were there in the first place, who, my sort of age, their children, and their children's children. So I'm like, wow. I'm saying to myself, are they sure that this young person really likes this song? Did they force that person to be there? But then you hear that, no, they wanted to come because you sang one way ticket. So I said, wow. So I feel really grateful to still be here. I'm really blessed with good health because, like you say, some of the ones from the 70s, they're no longer performing, not because they don't want to, but maybe they've got ill health. I've been blessed to be really healthy and I'm so grateful. I've been blessed that people are still interested in the music. But times have changed. Um, Once upon a time, you'd get your fan by doing shows. I remember when we lived in Germany, we were on the road for 28, 29 days a month. We had a show, you know. Um, and some people just, you know, are just loving the music. So, yeah, and I'm very grateful for that.